What's going on, Imperials? It's Emperor Cubone here. There are plenty of little surprises in the Pokemon world that gives it a little bit more character. And while some of these more nuanced features are better known, such as the desirable Pokerus disease, others may not be so apparent, especially to more casual fans that simply want to enjoy a fun, escaping experience, and don't really want to bother with the soul-crushing, number-obsessed, exclusionist competitive scene. So to start off, let's look at the pickup ability. You know it. It's the one that gets you free items just by having a Pokemon on your team, ranging from potions all the way to TMs. Everybody knows that. But are you familiar with its effects inside of battle? Starting in Generation 5, a Pokemon with pickup could recover a one-time use item at the end of the turn it was used. So, that citrus berry that your enemy just ate? Now you have one just like it. Same goes for the normal gym. Or for the air balloon. Actually, no, it doesn't work with that because the air balloon was destroyed for good. And there are some other stipulations, like it doesn't work after knockoff or other berry-consuming moves like pluck or incinerate. But it does work with the enemy's fling. But even with some limitations on picking up, can you imagine taking aback your opponent with this strange battle tactic by having an unconventional Pokemon snatching their Focus Sash? Does it work with a Focus Sash? Somebody test that and get back to me. Another interesting mechanic with Pokemon moves comes with Defense Curl. An incredibly common move in the early game, there's really no way to avoid it. And many of you probably know that once you use it, it increases the power of another move, Rollout. This makes sense because if you're already curled into a ball, it'll be easier to roll around. However, this tactic also works with Ice Ball. I knew that Ice Ball was essentially an Ice-type version of Rollout, but apparently it is actually that, with the user physically rolling into the target. I guess I just always deleted it before I bothered to read the description. But the fact that Defense Curl powers up these moves is brilliant synergy between Pokemon moves, akin to those weird pledge moves that nobody uses. And we see this in another scenario as well, starting with Minimize. This is another one of those annoying moves that makes the user so tiny that it increases their evasion. However, you can punish your opponents for using this move by coming back at them with Stomp, which will do double damage, which makes total sense because you're stepping on someone so minuscule it would really hurt a lot. But there's also been an assortment of other moves that have been added and taken away from dealing double damage to minimize targets. And as of right now, those moves include Body Slam, Dragon Rush, Flying Press, Heat Crash, Steamroller, Heavy Slam, Malicious Moonsault, and Double Iron Bash. These moves all circumvent the accuracy alterations of Minimize as well, and they all increase in power against the diminutive targets. So, since I personally hate it when other people use evasion moves all the time, I love that there are ways to punish them for using such tactics in this situation. Everybody knows the overlord of the Pokemon universe, Arceus, and its ability to change forms into actual different types with the ability Multi-Type. This is mainly done with the plates that you're able to find around the world in pretty much every region. These can be held by regular Pokemon to boost certain types of moves, but only Arceus will change types to conform to the plate. But, starting in Generation 7, this also happens with the different Z crystals. If you want Arceus to be your Z-move user on the team, it will change into whatever type attack you want it to use, provided it's not one that's only for specific Pokemon, since Arceus can't really use those anyway. But there does have to be a move of that same type for it to work, since this method can't technically work with the Fairyum Z, as Arceus doesn't know any Fairy-type moves at the moment. But that's better than not being able to have it at all, like when they found the data for the 3 question mark type back when it came out. Next, I'd like to talk about certain status conditions. Namely, I was curious about how easy it is to afflict them, meaning how widespread their potential might be. So I found that there are 27 moves that could have the potential to paralyze a target on their own. Many of those are electric-type moves, but there are some others for variety, like Lick, Bounce, Force Palm, Body Slam, and even Dragon Breath. There are 23 moves that could inherently cause burns, which of course are mostly Fire-type moves with some exceptions here and there. There are 18 moves that can inflict poison in some way, with pretty much all of them being poison type as well, except for maybe Twin Needle. There are 12 moves that can cause sleep, which honestly was more than I was expecting, but they're more spread out over different types with the likes of Normal, Grass, or Psychic. And we probably could have guessed that there are only 8 moves that can cause freezing, which is probably why it is seemingly the most forgettable status condition. Now there are other moves where these secondary effects can be added, like with Secret Power, which changes effects based on the right conditions, or Fling depending on the item. The move Psycho Shift can also transfer these conditions, except for the case of Freeze, which there's technically no way to move while you're frozen. And Sleep could only be transferred that way if Psycho Shift was triggered after using Sleep Talk to randomly select it. And of course, there's one more move for some of these with Tri-Attack, that can cause 3 of these status conditions by itself. But I'd like to zero in on Tri-Attack for a minute, because it is quite interesting. First of all, this move had no secondary effects in the first generation, but it was given a 6.67% chance to cause one of 3 status conditions at any one time in Gen 2. And at that time, Tri-Attack also had a 1 in 3 chance to thaw an already frozen target, essentially depending on which element it was assigned for that hit, and only the Fire-type option would do the thawing, not Electric or Ice. However, Gen 2 also allowed Tri-Attack to burn Fire types and freeze Ice types. This was something that was impossible from the very beginning, but I imagine that it's a similar scenario to the way that Twin Needle could poison Steel types in Gen 2 as well, despite them normally being immune, and that Fire and Ice types were exempt from the effects of the status conditions only from their native types, which accidentally created this loophole since no other move could inflict these statuses. They did fix it in Gen 3, and once the game changed in Generation 6, Tri-Attack could no longer paralyze Electric types, since they are now immune to the condition. Seriously, some people still don't believe me on that, but crack open your 3DS era games, and just try and use Stun Spore on an Electric type and let me know how that goes. Now, some Pokemon have move pools for days, while others have less than stellar variety. But, did you know that out of every Pokemon out there, there is only one that cannot learn a single normal type move? Weedle is the one Pokemon that can't learn even one normal type move, which is impressive considering there are a few hundred normal moves for it to ignore. But it makes sense when you think about it. While Caterpie could get Tackle, Weedle got Poison Sting instead. Its only other move was the Bug-type String Shot, and that was it at first. Later gens brought it other toys like Bug Bite or Electro Web, but still unable to get access to normal. Now when it evolves, Kakuna automatically gets Harden, which is a normal type move, but Weedle is still left out. And even looking at Pokemon with extremely limited move pools, we'll see normal. Magikarp? Well, Splash and Tackle are normal type moves. Transform? That's a normal type move. Sketch? That's normal too. Even Hidden Power, the only move that Unknown can learn, is normal. So every other Pokemon out there can at least learn Growl or Leer or something crammed into their moveset somewhere, but this little poisonous worm is, as of right now, the only Pokemon in existence not to share in that capability. One ability that has been used to the aggravation of many a Pokemon trainer is Shadow Tag. This ability started as a signature one for the Wobbuffet line and traps Pokemon in battle to prevent them from escaping, and later it was broadened to include others. But there are certain ways of getting out of it, like holding a Shed Shell or even using U-Turn or Volt Switch. And actually, starting in Generation 4, having the Shadow Tag ability itself makes you immune to its effects, allowing you to still switch out. This is almost certainly to avoid the terrible, endless cycle of 2 Wobbuffet locked in combat, unable to touch one another. But now Shadow Tag has another new enemy, Ghost-type Pokemon. Any and all ghosts are immune to the trapping effects of Shadow Tag. It somewhat makes sense because ghosts are essentially shadows unto themselves, and would know how to counter its properties. But what's more, is that all of the Pokemon that can have Shadow Tag are weak to ghosts as well, so they really need to watch out. This ghost immunity also works on similar trapping abilities, Magnet Pull and Arena Trap. It doesn't help much with Magnet Pull, only affecting one line, and the Arena Trap still has Levitators and Flyers to contend with as well, but the fact remains that ghosts are incredibly difficult to corner without a Proton Pack. Evolution is a pretty common part of the Pokemon world, and while many of them do so in drastically different ways, there's usually a generous portion of increase in their stats. However, did you know that when Makuhita evolves into Hariyama, every single stat doubles? Plenty of Pokemon could double their overall base stats, I suppose, but these fighting types have each individual stat raised to 2 times. This kind of balance and consistency is admirable, though I'm not really sure what the significance is of it in regards to sumo wrestling or the like, or why it's on a Pokemon that I find to be fine, but it's not really my favorite. While we're on the topic of evolution, another interesting scenario comes from the Porygon line. As we know, this technologically based Pokemon evolves with the upgrade item into Porygon 2, and then later it becomes Porygon Z with the Dubious Disc. The name of that item does imply some sort of nefarious intention behind whoever created this new Pokemon, but the fact remains, as others have noted, the Porygon line is the only one in the Pokemon universe to be able to evolve twice without leveling up at all. If you wanted to, you could have a Porygon Z at level 1, just by doing some trades. That would certainly come in handy for the first gym. And finally, out of the entirety of the Pokemon franchise, there's only one Pokemon that can evolve into a dual type that isn't already one of those types. Can you guess what it is? I'll give you a hint. That's right. As of right now, Cubone is the one Pokemon out of more than 800 that can evolve into a dual type without sharing either type with its evolution. Cubone is an amazing pure ground type Pokemon that evolves into the pure ground Marowak. But in the Alola region, it can evolve into Alolan Marowak, which is a fire and ghost type Pokemon. Think about it. Surskit and Masquerain are both still bug types. Drapion's still a poison type. Sure, you have things like the Evolutions, but none of those are dual-typed Pokemon. All of the other evolutions into dual types in the franchise share at least one type with the others that they're related to. So having Cubone to be the one to have the potential for such radical change, and be the solitary representative of this quirky mechanic, makes all the sense in the world, and could maybe even somehow help this Pokemon to be a little less lonely. Those are just some interesting facts about the beloved Pokemon franchise you might not have known. And if you did know them all, good for you. It's not a contest. Which crazy or obscure Pokemon facts are your favorites? Let me know down in the comments. Also be sure to leave a like, share this video, and subscribe so that you too can become an Imperial today. And we'll see you around next time!